Welcome. My name is Dan Crescenzo. I'm Executive Director of the Oconee River Land Trust. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. And I want to tell you a little bit about a project that Oconee River Land Trust is working on called the Middle Oconee Conservation Corridor. This is an initiative to protect land between West Broad Street and Old Macon Highway in the heart of Athens along the Middle Oconee River. We kind of build this as Athens' secret river because we're thinking most people who live in town, unless you live on the river or you have a kind of care about the environment mentality, just don't even notice it. They drive right by it every day. I mean, to and from the work, to and from the grocery store, and you don't even see it. You have to go out of your way to see it. You have to park somewhere and walk on the Greenway. You have to go to Ben Burton or whatnot. But we want to draw attention to this river and the land, the beautiful land along it that still has not yet been developed. And so, Oconee River Land Trust has been around for a little over 31 years. And the first easement we ever placed was on the Middle Oconee River, just a little bit north of town in Jackson County 25 years ago. And since then, we've grown to protect over 44,000 acres in the state of Georgia. So we've grown quite a bit since we started. But with this initiative, we're hoping to come back to where we started. It's in our name, we're the Oconee River Land Trust. And the Middle Oconee River is one of the three main branches that flows into the Oconee River. And so why now, you might ask? Well, how many of you have noticed that development has sped up again in the last 5 to 10 years, especially the last 5 years? And I think we're looking down the road and we're seeing there are still some places that haven't been developed and are unprotected in Athens, Clark County, but 10 or 20 years from now, maybe not. They might just be all gone. But the river, in particular, flowing through the heart of Athens, Clark County, is important, not just as a part of the identity of Athenians, but also historically, the town's here because of the rivers that are here in town, and also the species that depend upon it, all the animals that live in that corridor. With climate change, animals are going to need to move through Athens through a hostile urban environment in order to move north, and protecting land along the rivers helps to allow that to happen. Also, protecting land along the rivers helps to reduce pollution. Protecting forested land, in particular along the river, reduces various kinds of pollution. The biggest type of pollution in the Georgia Piedmont is suspended particulate matter. That's from erosion from runoff when it rains, like the rain we got today. And if you don't have vegetation or you just have impervious surface, it just flies right off of there. As soon as it hits some bare soil, it drags all that dirt right into the water. And that kind of environment with those suspended particulates is hostile for most types of aquatic life that are native to the river. And so we want clean water, we want habitat for aquatic life in the river. We want the habitats along the river to be full of native species, for those to be places where those species can persist in town and not be driven out and no longer exist in our community. And of course, if anyone's paddled the river, it's really beautiful. Some stretches of it, even in town, it's hard to tell you're in Athens. You just feel like you're in another place, just beautiful. And we want to conserve that too. So the primary way that we've conserved land and how we're trying to conserve land with this initiative is through the use of conservation easements. And with a conservation easement is a voluntary agreement between the landowner and the land trust, where the landowner agrees to give up their rights to further develop their land. So with an typical easement, the landowner will continue to own the land, live in the house if there's a house there, but they would give up the right to subdivide and build additional houses or to allow further development on the land. And that's the tool that we're hoping to use to conserve land within this corridor. Now, we have been very, very blessed and fortunate to have received a generous donation from the Riverview Foundation for $150,000 to help conserve land within this corridor. And that's over the course of 2 years, so it's $75,000 this year and $75,000 next year. So far this year, we've raised $50,000 of that to try to match the $75,000. And we're hoping to make the full $75,000 before the end of the year. So I'm hoping some of y'all, all of y'all, will consider donating, will consider giving a gift to help conserve this corridor. Because, you know, $75,000 seems impressive, but the amount of money it takes to actually conserve land is higher than you would think. So please consider it. We need your help to make this project a success. And it's going to continue into next year, and hopefully you'll start seeing more land conserved, and we'll really get on a roll with this. I want to introduce Jason Thrasher, who's here. Some folks might know Jason. He's a local photographer who's done excellent work with the Murmur Trestle book. There's an exhibit over there that you could take a look at. This is his work on that trestle that appeared in REM's work. And he's been partnering with us to take pictures of the Middle Oconee River for all 4 seasons this year. So he's been out there every month taking pictures of the river and the area as it changes through the seasons. And the plan is to create a whole work out of this that y'all can see, the whole finished product next year. But tonight he's going to give us a preview of it, a snapshot, a snippet of some of the work, some of the photos he's already taken, and they really are beautiful. And he's going to be talking just a few minutes about why he got involved with us and why he's working on this project, as well as Oconee Joe. Is Oconee Joe here? Oh, there he is. Yeah, I didn't, sorry, I looked at you and of course I didn't see. Oconee Joe, some of y'all might know, local historian, and really knows a lot about the history and culture, Native Americans, and also the ecology along the Oconee River. And we will be holding a silent auction as well with Jason Thrasher's, some prints of Jason Thrasher's photos, and that's right outside that door and on your right. If you would like to bid on that, that will be going on for the next hour. And all the proceeds will go to the conservation corridor, to the effort to protect that extremely important land in the heart of Athens. And so I thank you again. Oh yeah, one more thing I was supposed to say. We have several staff members out here. If you have any questions about the corridor and you want to go into more detail and talk with us about it, come grab me or one of the people who are now raising their hands, because I just said now raising their hand. There you go. They'll be happy to talk with you some more about it. So thank you again for coming out, and have a great night and enjoy yourselves.
Hi, thanks everybody for coming out for this. First I want to thank a few people. Well, Ciné, Brian and Dottie and Vicki and everybody that has helped put this thing together, and appreciate what they do for us here in Athens. And you can also help support Ciné, and they have plenty of ways to do that also. And thanks to everybody at the Oconee River Land Trust for bringing me in to help work on this project. And I want to thank UGA Press. Rachel is back here with copies of the Murmur Trestle book.
At 30% off.
30% off.
Yeah.
Prices are falling already.
Oh, no, don't say that.
I want to thank Dan and Sally Coonan, who have given me amazing access to their property to do a lot of these photographs, as well as Kim Barton and the Yetters. Here we're walking in the door right now, and B. Yetter, my guide, one of my river guides. Oconee Joe is not the only expert on this river. And I know I'm missing some folks. I had some ideas. Oh, my family, Beth and Francis and Josie, who support me in everything I do. And really, the community, thank you for all you do to help support my work and to help support the things that I try to support. And about this work, I want to say, we're going to do a little Q&A afterwards and a little talk. So I'll say more, but before you see the slideshow, Back in art school, Jim Herbert, before we'd show a movie in his class, he would say, "Do you have any apologies to make before we see this?" So at first I thought this was too early to show it. I've been photographing it for 9 months. I thought it would be a year. I really think it's a 2-year project now. I'm really just getting to know the river, and I have been working, I've maybe done 14, 15 trips out there to photograph it in this 9 months, but I haven't looked back at the work until this week. I've edited and color corrected and moved on. So I'm glad I'm doing this now, where at first I thought it was too early, but I really put this slideshow together. It's about 120 images. It takes about 20 minutes. Through this process, I've discovered what I was looking for in the river, and I think I know what the project is now, so I'm really glad we're doing this tonight. And I want to invite you all to come back in a year to see it when it's finished. And then I also, we have John Kieran Fernandez and Franklin Russell, the duo, who are going to perform for us. You all know John. He's one of the Athens legends. I love John. He's the guy who has, I think, bridges the Athens music scene as much as anybody with what he does with the new generations of musicians. And one of his companies is Cloud Recordings, and he has a booth outside with records and a lot of Athens, legendary albums. If you don't have them, you should have you should have all the records on his table out there. And whenever you see John, just give him a high five, because he's the best. And we also have the prints. They have the silent auction. I think that's everything. So I'm going to hit play when these guys are ready to play. And then, thank you all.
Thank you very much. This is Franklin Russell, and I've got records and cassettes and tote bags and all sorts of stuff like that.
How's that right there? So thank you to the John Kieran Fernandez and Franklin Russell duo. There was a record I was listening to all week, and I'm not even sure what it was. I just kept hitting repeat, and it was exactly, those guys did exactly what I've been hearing all week. If Franklin had the brain stick, it would have been dead on. Can we hear all right? So let's bring up Oconee Joe. He was right next to me a minute ago. Oconee Joe. Dave. I'm going to go ahead and loop the slideshow so you can see the photographs again, and we'll talk for a bit. If you have questions, feel free to ask as we go along. Oconee Joe, aka Dave, join us. So, Dave and I just met a couple of weeks ago and went down the river last Wednesday. And that was the first time I paddled down the river. I actually didn't paddle, I rode in the front of his boat, which he doesn't normally do. So I could take pictures, and he was my ferryman. So I guess we could just kind of do this as a conversation between the two of us, but I guess first I can say a little bit about my interest with the river. We live in Glenwood, which the river runs through our neighborhood, and we've spent a lot of time going down there and checking out the water as it changed through the seasons. My daughters even found a Pomeranian on a muddy island in the middle of the river around 2016, and we named him Romeo. And maybe 2014, he made it about 5 years. We lost him in 2019. But he was literally, like, he pooped sticks and twigs for about a week after we found that little purebred Pomeranian who a pet psychic told Beth he had lived by the train tracks with a hobo. But he had a river experience. And I've always wanted to do a photography project on the river, a river, in Athens or in Georgia. But it wasn't until Laura Hall from the Oconee River Land Trust reached out to me last year about doing this project that it made sense. And what it was the framework of that 3-mile stretch from the Atlanta Highway to Macon Highway. Like that, for me, concealed it into a place that I could focus on and dig into and look deeply at. And instantly I saw it as, kind of a sequel to the Murmur Trestle project. And if you've seen these photos, you can see it's a very similar approach where you look wide, look deep, look close, sit with it, let it reveal itself. And I said earlier, I didn't really know what the project was until I put this slideshow together. And now I'm really looking forward to fall, capturing fall, which hasn't happened yet, and going into next year and capturing some things that I missed and some different details that I see how I could expand now. Dave and I had an interesting talk, Oconee Joe, who doesn't like to show his face.
You're in for a rare treat tonight, folks.
Well, he came in my studio 2 weeks ago. We don't know each other. We just met out in front of the...
We have a mutual friend, Tony Paramore, that Tony's been a big supporter of both of us. for years, and so he eventually. So Tony brought us both together, and so it's been a really good. I don't know what Jason thinks about it, but I felt an immediate connection to Jason and what he was setting out to accomplish, and so it was a real honor to be able to take him down the river, and then as Jason said, be a ferryman, so to speak, by paddling. We hit the river last week, and we got a little rain tonight, but you guys know it's pretty low right now, so it's very pretty when it's like that. It gets really clear, but there's a lot of that section, particularly this 3-mile section, has a couple of shoal areas, and we had to kind of work together, jihad together to kind of navigate through the.
We made it through without sinking.
We did. No problem. I mean,
Tony, on the other hand.
yeah.
So we met a couple weeks ago. Dave came by my studio to do a portrait, and the first thing he walks in, he says, "I don't like to show my face," and that's because he sees the Oconee Joe character as one in a long line of river guides and people that have done this for generations, and he doesn't. He tries to take himself out of it. So I had to make a portrait of somebody that didn't want to show their face, and I think we succeeded. But I love that concept that he is just one of the millennium of people that have been on this river, and as well as B. Yetter, who was my guide on a big section of this river. But it kind of hit on the idea that I mentioned the ferryman, and we on the river last week we both brought up the book Siddhartha by Herman Hesse, and the ferryman for me has been a big character in my life and work. If you know me, you know I'm obsessed with India and the Ganges, and I've been twice and went back a couple of years ago, and I've been interested in the idea of sacred places and holy places, and we talked about this a lot last week. And he also is a big fan of the idea of the ferryman, who in the book that's where the character finds enlightenment, is taking people across the river and listening to the sounds of the water. And ever since that first experience in India, I've been interested in the idea of sacred places. And I believe Athens is, and it's a powerful place. And I talked to Coleman Barks, this was 25 years ago, right after that first trip to India, and we were talking about holy places, and he goes, well, there's places that are considered unholy. And then he's like, Birmingham, Alabama is one of them. I used to live in Birmingham, I'm from Huntsville. And I was like, exactly, I left Birmingham in tears, like driving down the freeway, escaping that city. And he told me, I don't know if that's true, but what he said was the natives wouldn't hunt or fish in the valley where Birmingham is. And I think it's because the iron in the ground, so heavy metals, you feel these things. And he said to me then that Athens has always been a trading town with the Native Americans, and just recently Tony Paramore, who was their guide for that trip? He's here. Who was the guide for that we did the trail through Athens last winter?
Is the UJ professor? James. Yeah,
Jay?
Brooks.
Brooks, yeah.
James Brooks gave us a really amazing...
Dr. Brooks.
Dr. Brooks, yes, that's it. He gave us a really amazing tour through Athens in December, where we walked through campus and down towards the river, and it was the trading path of the Cherokee. And we end up down by the old Murmur Trestle, and there's a couple of rocks in Dudley Park that you can see like carved, but it's been carved out where they carved things. I don't know.
It's for, it was more like a grinding hole. They're holes for grinding grain.
That's why I'm an expert.
Things like that. If you go in Dudley Park, there's a large rock outcrop of, it's granitic or gneiss, and so they've slowly worn it down over time. And you can still see it, put your hands in there, and just imagine the mortise or the pestle, working the grain. So
Yes.
Hickory nuts would be.
Yes, hickory nuts, all sorts of, anything that was, they could grind up. Yeah, that time period, we're talking, I don't want to do this, but don't let me do this, but we're talking archaic period, so we're talking 6,000 years ago, even earlier. There wasn't agriculture during that time, so there was a lot of, gathering, foraging, and that's what they were grinding up.
Amazing. See why I brought the expert? I have another perfect connection to that area is my yoga studio, and if you know me, I'm obsessed with that also. But Fuel Hot Yoga is in right behind the Classic Center, and this is Foundry, I guess what they call it. And I've always believed that room is a really spiritual place. It has an energy that I've done yoga and traveled to holy places, and that room is a very sacred place to me, and I feel things happening there that are other level for me, and I know that it's sitting on sacred land. So I've always had this obsession with Athens being a sacred place, and finally I get to do something that's kind of worshiping this river.
I think that's something I'd like to really kind of highlight what Jason's doing. The Murmur Trestle is on the North Oconee River, and now he's working on the Middle Oconee. So we have, and I'm a big archetype guy, I love archetypes. I built the Faceless Man of the River, Oconee Joe, on that archetype. I grew up reading, probably read Jung too young, and it probably messed me up, but I'm fascinated by the archetypes. It's within us all. It's our unconscious, collective unconscious is within us. And those themes resonate, I feel like, with individuals immediately. And I think what's important to realize about Athens is that there's a lot of themes there. We have Athens, Greek, we have mythology of that. We have the river Styx, which is, from the mythology. But with the north and the middle, we have a duality that's going on there. And so and it perfectly frames the hills of Athens, where the campus and downtown, where we're sitting right now, we're nestled between those two rivers. And so Jason was able to document Murmur Trestle on the north, and now he's doing a fantastic job. We just saw on the middle, he's bringing to life that duality. And what it shows us, though, is this is just the beginning. They meet just south of where we are. So they form the main Oconee. Both the middle and the north, they give up their identities to form the main. And then it travels 236 miles downriver until it gives up its name with the Okmulgee coming out of Macon area and on up into around Metro Atlanta on the east side. So they give up their name and form the Altamaha, which flows all the way to Darien, Georgia, in the Atlantic. So bringing it back to Athens, though, there's so much. There is the mythology of Athens, and Athens, Georgia, not Greece, but Georgia is now. We are building that mythology of our own identity. We're building an archetype as we speak, and Jason's documenting that visually. So it's incredible.
And you are as well.
I'm trying. I'm trying to do it to get people to experience it. If they can experience it, they will obviously appreciate it more. It's not just. There's many ways to enjoy the river. You can float it, you can fish it. I'm a little weirder than that. I want to know the ants I'm looking at. I want to know the vines. I want to know why that stone wall was once there. That's the identity that forms. This. It's really just code, probably ones and zeros. But once you start reading it, everywhere you look, you can see invasives and non-invasives, tires, PBR pop tops, in 3,000-year-old Indian pottery next to the PBR pop tops on the sandbar. It's a collective of our entire human existence right here in Athens, and points beyond too. So, yeah, sorry.
No, that's exactly what I need you here for. It's been an amazing experience getting to know this river, and I thanked a few people earlier, but like the snow photographs, I really have to thank Dan Coonan for that. I'm from Alabama, and I can't drive in the snow. He drove and picked me up and took me to his property so I could get down and catch those snow photographs. And also, I forgot to thank Bill Overend, who also has property down there, and some of the snow photographs were shot from his property. But it's been a really amazing kind of thing to discover and to watch it change. I mean, like I said, we've spent a lot of time on there, and I've floated down the Broad River many times and spent all the time at the train trestle. But to get and sit and start this project in the dead of winter when it's bare, and to walk the river bank until it starts to get overgrown to where you can't get through, and that snake, I almost snapped and stepped on it twice. I've met her. I think I've met her twice. And,
Non-venomous.
yeah, totally, but still terrifying.
It's an archetype. It's an archetype.
I know how boots up to here.
Yeah.
I hate snakes. I'm like Indiana Jones, just like, I mean, constantly like, and I almost said no to the project because of that. But it's just very exciting to get to be outside in the same place and to watch it change through the seasons.
I don't want to start the Q&A, but I was going to ask you, I saw the way you laid out some of these photos. You go back to some of the themes throughout that we just missed it. It was the river birch tree with the three branching out from the hole. You go back to the entwined vine through all the seasons. To me, that's the true, that is you learning, that's what the river is. Every time you go down to the river, somebody says, well, I saw it. You know, yeah, but you saw it in the spring at low flow, or you saw it, spring's usually higher. Summer gets a little lower, but the vegetation changes, and so you get this year-round, particularly with plants, but there's deeper things of that. The tadpoles that are there, the migratory birds that come through here, the thornberry warblers and indigo buntings, and I could just keep rattling off tanagers and everything. And that's what Dan was hitting on earlier. This is a corridor of life. There is death always mixed in there with it. The seasons are there.
Yeah, what I learned.
You can't have life without death. Yeah.
Putting the slideshow together, what I really started to see was just how the river is this magnet pulling the trees in.
Oh yeah, it does.
Like, it's just, like constantly changing, and there's that idea. I think it maybe came from the Siddhartha book. Also, the river's never the same. It's never the same water.
You're never the same person.
Never the same person. And it is a journey and it's a path. But yeah, I guess we can move to questions. That's really all I have. Yes. Yes, please.
Can you just say where the middle of Cody, where are you talking about?
Oh, the stretch that we're focused on is from the Atlanta Highway, right near where the car dealerships are, and Big Dog Outfitters, which you can go down the river with those guys, or with a Pony Joe.
Yeah,
So
both.
Yeah.
Stephen's family, they run a great job.
And they helped us out last week.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So, get a shout to them.
All the way down to the Macon Highway. But I've mostly been in about a 1.5 mile stretch closer to Macon Highway, which is running through Glenwood and Timothy Road.
Does the Greenway run around there?
Not on there. That's the North Oconee Greenway is what's established now. Just upstream of the bridge at Atlanta Highway, there's Beach Haven. There's some talks and plans. It's long term, but obviously that's a jewel that I think will be shared with the community over the years, and they're just now getting that going. And I hope I'm still able to paddle through there and walk through there when it really gets opened up over the years.
It's amazing how many, it runs through like Timothy Road, all those homes, through Beechwood, through Glenwood. When you're on the river, where we floated last week, there's really about 3 or 4 houses that are close to the water. You can see maybe another half dozen in the distance, and then the rest of them are just kind of hidden behind trees. And in the photographs, their houses hidden behind a lot of those trees in the pictures, they just disappear, and they're farther away than I thought they were from driving through my neighborhood thinking those were riverfront homes. They're really like up and away.
Yeah. Well, and don't let Jason fool you. I could tell right away as we started floating that his knowledge of where his he's you're a locational guy. I'm not going to tell him obsessed with maps and aerials, and he knew the neighborhoods and the houses and the roads, and I don't know if that's just because he was sneaking down there to get photos or but but it was apparent right away that he knew all the land, where everything is coming from a city point, and so. It's really refreshing when you do that, because I'm looking at these photos now and they're from the bank, and I was having a hard time on a couple of these. Like, I know that, I see a rock or a shoal, I know where that is, the dam obviously, but to see it from the bank is a whole new perspective in itself, because I'm always seeing it from the water line. The wintertime, I'll stand up and I've got a paddle, stand-up paddle, and I'll stand up in the canoe and I'll paddle. You can see the topo with all the vegetation gone, but Jason knew it all, like just going down through there. Oh yeah, we're the backside of St. George, or Beechwood, or you get into Princeton, you get into the 5 Points area. So yeah,
And the same house we all three looked at that needed a lot of work. Whoever bought it did a really killer job over in Beach
Oh yeah,
Road.
we're always house
There was
shopping.
one house, a few years ago, it was a deal, and whoever got it really did a nice job.
I think she never ended up over here. Just off cloud.
Yeah,
Do you all have an interest or know of anyone who has an interest in clearing the river from up at Chandler Bridge, the edge of Clark County into town? In order to kayak it, because it's pretty, there's a lot of,
So I paddle that. That's off 83. That's, you're way up
right
there.
at Chandler Bridge.
Yeah, Chandler
in the
Bridge.
town.
So I've paddled that before. I scouted it for clients. It's not ready. It's like you said. It's
Yeah,
you got to go on a mission to do it. So I always take loppers and things like that. So
I mean, I don't know if you're aware, but there's 2 Oconee River Land Trust properties there.
I've heard that. Yeah. So no, I love that area. It's really that area from above Tallahassee Dam is a hidden gem. There's about 7 miles. From 334, 330, whatever it is. Yeah, 330 above. Back to the 82 or how that's you got Jackson and Barrow County border there. It's a really pretty stretch through there. It's just remote and hard to get down to.
If you ever have an interest, let me know.
Thank you, I will. I paddle. I do that a couple times a year, but it's a like I said, I don't
It's not easy.
take clientele down there. Yeah, I just to see it, just so I can kind of document on the changes over the years. Yeah, so.
and we've got the guys from the,
You can, what I call land kayaking.
Yeah, that's right.
we drag it.
No, like you can go out on the land and kayak because we let the water come back in the slough and you can kayak a lot of places that you can't. It's not really the river, but it's the slough.
Yeah, it's like a backwater.
Okay. Yeah, we have the guys from the Oconee River Land Trust if you have questions for those guys as well about the details of what they're working on. Yes, what you got?
Dave, Lance here.
Yeah, I see you, Lance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you helped me do that podcast a couple years ago. You were talking about the different, places in Athens that had trading posts and stuff like that. You just mentioned it. What were some of those different places? I think that you may explain. Like Whitehall has its own village, and then another.
Oh, there's so many. I've seen things throughout time. The timeline of the rivers, it's almost like you spin the dial. So you're spinning it to the Industrial Revolution period, and you see these mill villages pop up and down. From you have the Tallahassee area, you had the Princeton Mill was a huge one. That's Jason covers that with the busted dam there. That was James White, and then you have all down through there. You jump over to North Oconee, you have Whitehall. You get Barnett Shoals, obviously, on the main Oconee. Those are all Industrial Age Revolution mill towns that were popped up from some date before the Civil War in Athens. Barnett Shoals was after, it was 1880 through 1930. But they were all there. James White, the White family owned a lot of those. They were big industrialists of the day. So yeah, I'll talk to you about that. I don't want to take.
I think B's got a question over
Yep,
here.
yep.
Yes, what you got, B?
Why is there a middle county and a north county but not like a south?
No, go ahead. You go.
The South Oconee River is called the Appalachie River. There is a third river, it just is, I don't know why they didn't call it the South Oconee, but.
Yeah, or the lower, or whatever.
Or
They and the Appalachie runs into the main Oconee in Greene County, but now it doesn't run into the river; it runs into the lake. The impoundment of Wallace Dam backed up, so you'll come down what I call the Greshamville Peninsula. You'll have the main Oconee Channel coming from Skull Shoals, the Iron Horse area, and the Dyer's Pasture. Then on the other side of it, on the other side of the hill, you'll have the Appalachie coming in. So yeah, but that was it. There were 3 rivers that were there. Yeah.
Where can we find more history about all these spots along the Oconee River?
You do some digging. Online has become a lot easier, less, to even 10 years, but certainly when I started in the late 90s, early 2000s as a UGA student, it was harder. It's easier there. I'm trying to write on it. I'm trying to document. I'd like to do, something bigger one day, on a book or something to really showcase that. But it's there. You can always just reach out to me, and I'll try to point you in the right direction for that specific. There's so much scattered stuff that, if you got on my laptop, you'd be like, what is this mess? Because you go in these files within files within files. So anyway, I'm gonna turn it back to Jason.
Yeah, how about maybe two more? I see two hands. So Neil, you've been going for a while.
Sure. I'm curious about the timeline of the river. Somebody told me that it used to run clear, but I'm curious about that. I'm also curious about the current health of the river and compare today versus like 10 years ago.
So the multi-layered question, there's a reference from Bartram actually that is kind of one of the earliest identifiers talking about, he came up the Altamaha and saw the Oconee and then saw the Okmulgee still running clear. 17, he was through here just almost during the Revolutionary War, which is crazy to consider. Everybody's tearing worlds apart, and he's collecting plants and specimens, but he could see already the colonies and the treaties that had moved out to the Oconee border and had seen, I'm sure cutting was going on, turning woodland into farmland, and it was already causing the erosion. And obviously, Okmulgee was still in Creek Nation territory, so the Creek Confederacy, and so it was still running pretty clear, not a lot of agriculture. I mean, not large scale, industrial scale or colonial plantation scale. We see the biggest impact probably from the monocropping of the 1800s and a lot of cotton and the runoff from the hillsides. You can go, particularly through Skull Shoals experimental forest. The experimental forest phrase is because when the federal government bought that land during the Depression, they basically just shut the woods down and let the fields come back fallow naturally. But when you walk it, we're in the Piedmont, it's kind of a Goldilocks zone. It shouldn't be too hilly or too flat. Yet when you go through the national forest through there, it can be pretty rugged because you'll get to these massive canyons. They're man-made, this runoff. And so that added that siltation there. So when we leave, you're seeing where Jason was documenting, when you get below Macon Highway, it's all sand. And same thing when you're on the North Oconee and you get below the confluence, basically where Whitehall is, and Clinchkins Phoenix at UGA, it becomes sandy. And that's 100, 200 years of just monocropping and runoff. And the water quality question, when I first moved here, I was at UGA and was fishing, and I think you could eat the fish, it said, once a month, because of mercury and other contaminants. That has improved. The fish quality, the eating, if you were doing that, it has improved largely. Now, there are still chemical runoffs. There's still erosion from certain development, particularly the Middle Oconee watershed. The headwaters, are in the Brazelton area, the Brazelton-Houston area, and obviously that's going through a tremendous amount of change and growth right now. And so you're seeing that. You'll see it all the way, probably in the area if you wanted to, but certainly through our neck of the woods and waters. So it's a constant thread of the now, whereas Bartram was talking kind of that east to west expansion, now we're getting this east to west with Bartram. Now we're getting this west to east push from Metro Atlanta. And so that will constantly be a threat, and that will be something that these guys are working to conserve. Obviously, by preservation of this buffer, Jason did a great job. You had the water. When was that flood? Was that recent? Was that from August?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. You can see in there the river oats. The river oats are native plants, and you can see the river has jumped the bank in a couple of his photos. And they're probably scouring that hillside right there, and plants like the river oats and the river cane particularly give a foothold. We have Chinese privet, plenty of that, but the native cane and the native grasses that were here are capable of holding that soil on the bank a lot better too. So, and that's what these guys are in the process of doing on that corridor. I can't think of a more important corridor right now in Athens, because north of Atlanta Highway, it gets fairly rural again, and then, you know, as she was talking about earlier, if you get back up into Jackson and Barrow, it's largely farmsteads and gentleman estate, you know, type farms. It's pretty, it's very scenic. You get the urban area through here, and then you, like what Jason said, you just get these, it's almost like this little silk, you know, green and muddy red. So it's a blend of red and green, of band that runs right through there that preserves the natural habitat through there. So,
How about right here? You have one more, maybe one more after that. Then we have a lot of other, you know, we have the auction outside. We've got books, we've got records and things, and they might have.
yeah, ask me, track me down, and I'll talk.
So,
I
right here.
wanted to ask about the service. Is it infiltrated?
Yes.
Okay, so you sell and nobody can, they cannot bill.
That's correct. So the way it works is, if you do a conservation, if you do a conservation easement with the Oconee River Land Trust, we do in perpetuity conservation easements. So once the easement is placed, whoever buys the property will also have the easement on it, and whoever buys it from them will also have the easement on it, and so on and so forth. And that's why this is such a great tool. This isn't like Kuva or things that are just temporary. Once it's there, whoever gets in the future, they're going to have the same restrictions.
All right,
Dale,
one more?
Dale, that's you. Yep. You got it?
Yes. What you got?
In your photographs, I didn't see a whole lot of evidence of the invasive plants like privet. And so I wondered if in your documentation, are you going to illustrate those kind of problems with the river, or?
I probably have photographs of them. I don't know which is which. I just look for cool photographs. So at some point, somebody else will have to edit through for the details.
Laura Hall with the Oconee River Land Trust, she's adamant that we try to document the native species. Like when we were down the river last week, she sent an email. I was like,
Yeah.
she's like, I wish I could go to point out the species. I'm an eternal student of the land and water. I will forever be learning. You know.
You could have a separate chapter.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think you're right, Neil. I mean, you're talking to the invasive expert, right?
Yeah, these are the nature experts. I'm the photographer. To me, the Schlitz can is almost as interesting as the turtle.
I agree.
I can tell you that there are a lot of invasive species, but there also are a surprising number of areas that don't have that many invasive species. Still, even in town, you'd be surprised. There are large areas of river cane, which is really important for a lot of species. 3 species of moths that are butterflies that live here can only feed on the river cane. There's the Bachman's warbler, so there are really great patches of natural habitat still within this corridor.
And right now, when we go down through there, I was Jason, I was like, yeah, there's ironweed over there, and there's, yellow wingstem. There's a lot of, there's some milkweed out right now I saw, and so yeah, it's a mix. But then you'll go by, English ivy and privet. It is what it.
But I would like to add that even if an area has invasive species problems, it's still better that it be protected as a forest so that it has less impervious surface, and it still does help to protect the water quality just for it to be vegetated. So,
Dan, do y'all, once you have control of the property, y'all do go in and try to remove some of that over time? Or do y'all, it just depends? Or?
We'll work with the landowner if that's something that they're interested in doing.
We typically we don't have the resources to just go through all of our easements and then remove all of the invasive species. But if a landowner is interested, we hook them up with resources. Sometimes we've done kind of volunteer days to help remove some invasive species and stuff like that.
And it's always an ongoing process because they're pretty much impossible to eradicate most of the time. So you're in a constant management struggle to get them.
This is the man talking.
Do you have any photographs of otters?
I haven't seen any
Because
others.
that's part of the logo. We have, I know where they are.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can see them every day.
There's one by the tree line.
Oh, cool. Okay, let's go find it. Yeah, okay. What do you guys think? Yes, sir.
North of
Lake Chaplain. Y'all pastors and stuff, so one way or the other. Are there any, did y'all see any bear there on Middle Oconee?
No, but they will come through. There's three populations of you said black bear?
Yes, sir.
There's three, we have three breeding populations of black bear in the state of Georgia, North Georgia mountains, around the Twiggs County, Mobile County kind of buffer through there, south around the fall line, and then in the Okefenokee. So the young black bear will come from, and vice versa. They're looking for mates or get pushed out from adult bears. So there are grown male bears, and so they will come down our corridor. Almost every spring we get trail cams and even ring cameras and things like that. And the population is expanding, so it'll be more common.
All right, well, you guys have been very patient and you've been here for a long time, so I'll keep it short and sweet. But big thanks to Jason and to David, as well as John Karen and the duo, and to Ciné as well, of course. And so this will not come as a surprise to most of you, but land conservation is not cheap. And we have fairly limited resources to help do what we're doing. So there are lots of ways in which you can help us. For the Middle Oconee Conservation Corridor, specifically, you can tell other folks about it, especially if you know people who are on the river itself. You can make a gift to the Oconee River Land Trust, where we can use that money for staff, for experts, for all the things that go into actually getting it together to be able to conserve big tracts of land. And you can go out and bid on these beautiful photos from Jason. There's 5 of them, and the auction is still open. And thanks again for all coming.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you all. Thank you.